Anything apart from XL, we can do.
Must be some toilets in there. Nah.
More, no.
Nah, about 300-400 maybe, I'd say.
More spread out, isn't it?
Yeah.
What part is it?
I think it's called Central Park.
Hurry up, Palestine! Free Palestine!
I was talking about like Orthodox Jewish food, and everyone went, "Oh, are you Jewish?"
Welcome everybody to Newark! Alright, I'm going to wait a little bit. I can't quite see, but I think there's quite a few more people filing in. So let's keep going with some chants. Every 2 years, the Excel Centre plays host to delegations from a range of oppressive states who buy and sell military technology. From missiles to tanks to sniper rifles, this used to surveil, besiege and murder millions of civilians across the world. From the streets of Yemen to the cantons of Kurdistan, from mosques in Afghanistan to playgrounds in Gaza, to black neighbourhoods and cities across America. The UK government is directly involved in this arms fair. Our government extends official invitations to key military allies from other governments, including a large number of states who the UK Foreign Office considers to be human rights priority countries, what used to be called countries of concern. This list includes Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Bahrain, all of whom habitually commit war crimes against and human rights abuses against their own people and beyond their borders. In 2019, for the first time, the UK government invited a state delegation from Israel to attend in an official capacity, although, of course, the Israeli state have been seasoned attenders of the fair for years. Israel operates an oppressive regime of military control over the Palestinian people in the territory it illegally occupies, as part of a system of settler colonialism and racism against the Palestinian people. Israel's militarized repression of Palestinians is a grave injustice, but it is only made possible through the support from governments and corporations worldwide that endorse, enable and profit from the ongoing situation of occupation and apartheid. Exhibitors at the DSEI Arms Fair will include companies supplying Israel with weapons and military technology to carry out these attacks.
Okay, that's got it.
Palestinians have stood steadfast in their struggle for liberation, self-determination and return against incredible odds. And they have called for international civil society to show solidarity by holding their own complicit governments and companies to account. And that's why we're all here today, to honour that call for solidarity and to demand an end to the complicity of our government, of our public bodies and our companies and corporations.
The people from Newham, fantastic protest, fantastic demo, and I thought it was very interesting and very significant, the response that we got on the way, which was overwhelmingly positive. We were welcomed by hundreds and hundreds of people in the streets, and I tell you, I think that's very significant, because I just want to say a few words about how far we have come. The Palestinian people are still experiencing intense daily oppression and repression. But the movement internationally, and particularly the movement in Britain, is growing fast. This year alone, we've had 3 massive national demonstrations. I believe that you've already had 1 or 2 demonstrations in Newham before this one today. This is a movement that is growing, that is involving tens, hundreds of thousands of people, and it has had an impact. We are now in a situation in the heartlands of support for Israel internationally. The majority of people in this country are now pro-Palestinian and anti-war. And so don't let anyone tell you that marching and protesting and campaigning doesn't make a difference, because it does make a difference. And there's something particularly significant about the protests that we're having today, because it speaks to the fact that London is unfortunately an essential centre of support for Zionism and of support for the Israeli state. The truth is, Israel would not be able to continue its oppression, its killing, its bombing of the Palestinian people if it wasn't for the arms trade, which is centred in London. And Israel wouldn't be able to continue its oppression of the Palestinian people if it wasn't for the fact that our government, along with its masters in Washington, back the Israeli state militarily, politically, diplomatically. And it is that support that it is our main duty to break. This is the crucial strategic question for the movement in Britain. We have to break the support of the British state for the Israeli military, and we have to break the British state's continuing participation in the wars that they have conducted over the last 2 decades. Because the other thing that today's protest coincides with is, as we all know, the beginning of the war on terror 20 years ago. And at the same time, the absolute humiliation of the occupiers in Afghanistan. And the Afghan people face a very difficult future. But what has been excluded from the debate by the commentators, by the media, by the politicians, is the thing that we all said 20 years ago, and we have continued to say as we've marched over the last 2 decades. You cannot liberate a people by bombing them. You cannot bring peace by waging war. You cannot bring democracy at the barrel of a gun. And this is something that the vast majority of people in Britain and many, many millions of people around the world understand. Unfortunately, at the moment, our politicians and the military are not drawing the right lessons from what has happened. They're trying to repress that obvious conclusion that so many people understand. And that's why we've got to continue our campaigning and continue our protesting. Unfortunately, the Tory government is committed to this fantastic fiction of global Britain, this neo-colonial fantasy that the British government continues to hold to, that we should play a global military role around the world. But even on the question of war, we have made a difference. And I tell you how you can know that. Because in the United States or the UK, it would be political suicide for any government to try and launch the kind of invasion they made in Afghanistan 20 years ago.
but I would like to share some thought with you. I've never been interested in politics, never had any political opinion, never supported any party, never done anything before. But the reason I'm here today is because I realized how wrong I am. You cannot just stand back at the time other people are suffering and pretend as if nothing has happened. It's like not because I'm interested in politics, it's just because I care about humanity. Okay, so back to my speech. So thank you for coming here as well. So we will never fail with the crowd. And I know everyone knows why we are here, but I would like to remind you again and again that we are here to resist the arms fair and calling out the British government to stop arming Israel. So the government which always call for human rights but do nothing when it comes to the Palestinian rights, since they are afraid of putting pressure on Israel. But this must end, and we must do our best to stop this, even if that means doing the least. Like, I might not have the power to do anything today, it might be just me speaking up and sharing my opinion. However, my aim is that my voice will reach someone who can do something about this, and hopefully we will have a free Palestine soon and stop all this torture and massacre going on. So our MPs are not immune as well from accountability. They promise to represent us, but they have never, and they must do now. They must end the British government unconditional support to Israel. And until the British government brings us justice, there will be no peace. We will never stop. We will continue to demonstrate until Israel stops the killing of Palestinians, stop depriving them of their human rights, and until we return to our lands liberated and to Jerusalem, the eternal capital of Palestine. The last thing to mention to everyone here, so many Israeli delegates are attending the fair, so we want them to hear, and the Israeli government as well, that we won't stop and no one can stop us. And thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Baya. Now, our next speaker, I'm sure you all know her. She is someone who's always stood with the Palestinian people against war and imperialism, for climate justice. She is the former leader of the Green Party and in 2019 became the second Green Party member of the House of Lords. So please put your hands together for Natalie Bennett.
I want to first of all thank all of the groups involved in organising today's rally. I want you to join with me in thanking all of our speakers, but I want you to give a big round of applause to yourself for your energy and for marching with us today. Now, this is one of a series of actions taking place in opposition to the Diocese Arm Fair, starting last week and continuing all through next week. And our message is clear. The merchants of death, the masters of war, are not welcome in the UK, are not welcome in the City of London. And today, here, you, the people of Newham, have spoken loud and clear. The merchants of death and the masters of war are not welcome in this borough. We do not want to see trucks carrying weapons used to commit human rights abuses, used to butcher civilians driving through our streets on the way to the Excel. We do not want to play host to those who seek to make profit from the blood of the innocent across the globe. Now today, we have joined hands with the people of Liverpool, who yesterday marched in their thousands, delivering a similar message in relation to the arms fair scheduled to take place in that city next month. Now, as Zane has said, Newham is one of the most diverse boroughs in the UK. And we know that many in this community, many standing with us today, are refugees from places torn apart by war. This week in the Excel, less than 2 miles from here, representatives of more than 120 companies who produce the weapons that have devastated those communities in their homelands will proudly sell their wares. And amongst them will be companies that sell weapons to Israel or produce weapons for Israel, including Elbit Systems, whose drones form the backbone of Israel's arsenal and are used in the deadly bombardments of Gaza. Now in May, 200,000 of you marched with us in London as Israel bombarded Gaza, killing over 260 Palestinians, including 67 children. Elbit, who provided many of the weapons used in that bombardment, will this week be standing in the Excel Centre, proudly displaying weapons that they will market as battle-tested, meaning proven to be successful in incinerating children, proven to be effective in burying entire families under the rubble of their own homes. Not in our city, not in our borough. This year, Israel will have its own pavilion at Excel to market the weapons and the surveillance equipment its company developed to oppress Palestinians and sell to rights-abusing regimes across the world. Now, when we all marched in May, you'll remember we said this: a ceasefire will be called, and it was. But on the day after the ceasefire, the people of Gaza woke up, still living under a brutal siege, now in its 15th year. The people of Sheikh Jarrah woke up, still facing ethnic cleansing. Palestinians in the West Bank and East Jerusalem woke up, still living under a brutal military occupation enforced every day by soldiers who deny them freedom of movement, deny them access to their lands, demolish their homes, and if they protest, subject them and their children to torture inside military custody. Next week, Israel will proudly market the weapons and the surveillance systems it uses to enforce that system of oppression, that system of apartheid, and it will do it just 2 miles from here in the borough of Newham. So this protest must not end today. We have not and we will not succeed in stopping DSEI 2021. But the campaign against DSEI is growing and is bigger than ever. And if we continue to mobilise together within this fantastic Stop DSEI coalition, then we can make sure that DSEI 2021 is the last arms fair ever held in this borough, is the last arms fair ever held in London. The pressure that we need to build needs to include pressure on Newham Council, on the Mayor of Newham and on the Mayor of London. We welcome the statement by Roxana Fiaz. We welcome the statement by Sadiq Khan of full opposition to the fair, but they can and must do more to exhaust all the powers available to them to ensure this fair never returns. So thank you for coming today. Please look at the DSEI, Stop DSEI Arms Fair website to see the other events taking place tonight. I want to make a special call to come to Cundy Park, 6:30 on Thursday, where we will be bringing a range of political activists and artists and poets. The difference being every single one of them is Palestinian, and they will be talking directly about the impact of the weapons being sold at DSEI on them and their families. This campaign can be won. So let us vow today to carry on campaigning, to carry on marching, to carry on lobbying until DSEI is cancelled forever, and to carry on standing in solidarity with the people of Palestine. Never to stop protesting, never to stop rallying, never to stop marching, never to stop boycotting until the Palestinian people enjoy what is their birthright: freedom, justice and equality in their historic homeland. Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Safe journeys home.